Tesla Tuesday talks. Tesla. Lansing, it's weird. There's not a lot of areas that are booming. It all has been kind of steady growth, but there are some weird spots, some weird pockets that, like pulling comps on that one over there. Some of the comps were 100 to 120 and some were 200 to 250 for similar neighborhoods. So I think as people's expectations change in the market, that was actually, we just drove past one that was 220 for just a 2-story house in a not so good area. But I think as other people, like other areas are kind of transforming that way, that there's not a lot of inventory, so people are buying that old house and fixing it up. But for the longest time, if you did that in Lansing, you couldn't get your money back out of it. But now the prices are kind of going up high enough to justify putting $100,000 into that 100-year-old house and putting in the foundation repairs and new kitchens and blowing out walls and all that. For the longest time, when I was flipping, it was like, if I can put in 20 and make 20, that makes sense. Put in 30, make 30, that makes sense. But to try to go for the top of the line $200,000 price point when the neighbor's house sold for 100 was a little risky.
I guess that's just a little advantage to the inflation of like housing prices.
Yep.
Is that investors are able to provide a better like solution to the housing need.
Yeah, and I think the aging buyer population too. At a training I was at recently, they said that the average age of the first-time home buyer in the nation is 36 years old.
Really?
And it's like, okay, well, what are they doing between 18 and 36? You know, living with their parents, living with a roommate, you know, renting, and that gets old after a while. And so it feels like because of COVID and all these other things, there was all these excuses that people were using to not buy a house. And now I think that the millennials, 30 to 40-year-olds, are settling into saying, like, rates aren't going to go down, prices aren't going to go down. If I'm going to buy, I should just buy now, even if it's buying a nice house in a so-so area and feel like you're overpaying. But it's either that or keep renting, and rents keep going up, and you should always own. But it's tough. There's not as many like fixer-uppers available or fairly priced homes for younger people that are saying, how do I buy something and add some value? There's just not as many of those out there.
On market.
Yeah. I don't know if there's more happening off market now than there was 10 or 20 years ago. I feel like there's probably a fair amount of off market stuff that's been happening all along, and we're just more aware of it now.
And now with wholesalers being more popular everywhere, I feel like the off market deals are they're becoming more like scarce almost.
Yeah, definitely a certain percentage of them are going to more sophisticated investors, which makes it even harder for newer people to jump in. You know, here's why your rental may not be renting. So if it's listed and it's not renting, there's a few things that could be wrong with it. You could need more pictures and a better marketing presentation. We found if we take professional photos or use wide angle lenses and things, sometimes just presenting it better media makes the difference. Writing a better description is a part of that too, making sure that you're explaining all of the details of the property, the benefits, the pros, what's around it, because someone might be interested in moving there from out of town and they don't know that it's next to the baseball stadium, so you got to tell people that in the description. The first thing I would check though, before I check the description in the media, would be the price. You can do a quick Zillow search. We check Zillow, Craigslist, and apartments.com and just kind of compare within a quarter-mile radius or within that same block radius what similar bedroom bath counts are renting for. If you're shooting for the top of the market, you can expect longer days on market, and you really have to calculate if that's going to be worth it. You know, if rent is $1,000 a month and you're trying to get $1,100 a month, but it takes you 3 months of vacancy to get $1,100, you essentially just lost $3,000 of potential income to make $100 extra a month. So as long as that tenant stays there for 30 months, you broke even on what it would have been if you just offered it at market rent at $1,000. So those are things to consider: price, media, your marketing, and then also just making sure that you post it in as many places as possible. We list our rental properties on Facebook, on Craigslist, apartments.com, Zillow. Also in our property management software, it syncs to a bunch of other websites. So the wider net you can cast, the more likely it is you'll catch, you know, what you're going after. So if yours isn't renting, it's most likely the price, but it also could be your marketing, your media, and where you're listing it for rent. Someone from one of the meetings messaged me and said, hey, can you tweak this a little bit? And I'm not getting any bites. and he wanted like $500 more than everything else in that neighborhood. And I like just took a snapshot of Zillow and said, see how you're at this price and everyone else is way below you? Like it's not going to work. It's like, but mine's nicer. It's not that nice, you know. Like
it's interesting how far a lot of people get in investing, skipping a lot of things that I feel like are fundamental, or that like I feel like you learn along the way.
Yeah, and also sometimes you're just too close to it, you know. Like if you put a lot of effort into it, it might be worth more to you than the market is, you know. And I feel like I've been pretty good at calculating some of those things and knowing when just to say, all right, it's worth losing $100 a month if we can at least just get it filled and move on to the next thing. Where, like I was telling you earlier, that guy who flipped a house and was on the market for 150 days, you know, like you hold out for your price and you might get it, but if it takes you to the point where you can only do 1 or 2 deals a year, is that the best use of your time compared to selling it for a little bit less but being able to do 4 or 5 times as much? You know, that might be the difference between looking up a few years from now and having, you know, 20 rentals instead of 2 because you only wanted to buy home run deals. You know, it's all risk versus reward,
or just how much risk tolerance you have.
Yeah, and some of that too comes with like your ability to solve problems. You know, if I'm confident, I go into something and say I think I can fix this even if something goes wrong. Where if you don't have that confidence or that ability or that network or even just a line of credit, sometimes that's could be nerve-wracking going into something not knowing what your plan B is. Part of it's the burn the boats mentality too, though. Like I'm just going to get into it and I'm going to make it succeed because I believe in myself.
Although I don't have a lot of boats.
That's the best. It's the best time to get into it when you don't have a ton to lose.
That's true.
Like I could lose it all, but it's not that much.
That's true. I could start over from where I'm at.
Yep.
But the John guy, I don't know. I just don't want to annoy him like on the phone. Like, hey, can you call me? Can you call me? Like.
Yeah. I mean, did you say I'm interested in buying your property?
He knows. Like, he knows, and I told him I want to go through it too and see what it all looks like. But I want to do the seller financing, $30,000, and then I would live in it and fix it up. So he knows pretty much everything.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I would follow up with him. Maybe ask like, when can we chat about this? You know. So
I want to go in person.
Okay. Yeah. When can we meet over there? Yeah. Yeah. So sometimes like following up with people instead of like am I bugging him? Ask like when is a good time and see what he says. You know, rather than just say, hey, can we meet at the house? And he's like, oh, I'm not busy. I'm busy today. Call me tomorrow. And you're like, well, okay. Well, when can you go? Yeah. Some of those, like an open-ended question or a yes or no question, you want to lead the conversation where you want it to go. Or you could even say, hey, I'm free this week. What's a good day this week to go look at it?
I just don't know how he, as a person, is like. Does he just want to text? Does he just want to call? Does he just want to get it over with?
He calls me normally, and the handful of interactions we've had, he'll call. But I also don't know like how busy he is with other things and what he has going on.
Is he a full-time real estate investor?
I think so. Yeah, I think that's all he does. And it's not like he's a full-time lender or anything. He just does that occasionally. So I think he bought a bunch of houses and rented them for 20, 30 years, and then he started selling them on land contracts so he could transition out of management and just keep the cash flow.
Yeah.
And then he says more often than not he gets the houses back, so then he can resell them to someone else with a new down payment.
So he is looking to get into like
he'd prefer a land contract.
He would. So he's at that point where, okay, I see. Okay, well that's good to know.